Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. I'm Reina Creole, bringing you that spice to sci-fi and pop culture analysis and keeping it real when it comes to theme parks. So welcome to the after school special show where, folks, we can't get our schedules synced up to, get together on the Friday noon show. So you know what? We meet them after school. And these aren't necessarily regularly scheduled. It's more to accommodate other folks' schedules so we can bring them on and bring them to you and have fun with you folks in our amazing chat. Get to know somebody else in the fandom and just generally kick back and have an absolutely amazing time. So with that said, let me kick this off and bring up my partner in crime, Fat Steven Seagal. How you doing?
I'm feeling very skelebetus today.
Oh,
I watched He-Man, that Netflix thing, and I have no one to fight now. All I do is eat and try to live up to Kevin Smith's expectations. Full of crap and they're just full of crap. Oh, Skelebetus is tired.
That is really horrifying.
It's horrifying. I can't find a bra that holds these things up anymore. I just got like these Smurf boobs everywhere. It's bad. All right, I'm done. I can't do it no more. Sorry.
I'm like, that is so wrong.
You're still staring intently.
That's wrong on so many levels, man. It really is.
It's not like they were going la 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 la. Happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday. How are you doing, my dear?
We've been getting rain nonstop, air pressure killing me, migraine yesterday, almost one again today, but I'm managing. The channel has been booming. I had fun, and I'm going to bring this up because I know we did. Someone was doing a stream last night, so I use my parody accounts once in a while to joke around, right?
Right.
So I have a young Nerdrotics account with Gareth at his beard. And
wow.
Oh no, it wasn't bad. I don't know if I should say this story.
I think I've seen that before.
Yeah, it was hilarious where he thought it was his wife. It was his wife, and it wasn't.
Oh well.
It was funny. I've had a good time. It seems like lately the YouTube's having a lot more fun lately. That's what I'm just trying to say. I'm having a blast. We have a great guy in the back. We met more of his team earlier in the future.
Yes.
Earlier in the future.
Later. No, went one. There's one more we got to get on, but this was a nice follow-up considering his better half was on a couple of weeks ago where we did a recorded show and had way too much fun.
We talked about so much food.
I know. That's why we want to do it again. We just want to talk about food and stuff. So I can't wait to do another recording with her. But we're not going to hold our guest in the back very long because he is a very, very, very busy person. So, folks, please welcome to the show Matt Kadish of the Salty Nerd Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on.
I'm honored by your verified presence.
I know I'm a blue check mark, so you all should feel very blessed by me gracing you.
Is it on the outside of your house?
What's that?
Is it on the outside of your house? Now you can get the check marks for your house.
Oh no, I have it tattooed on the inside of my eyelids.
Cool.
I just want to know what sacrifice or ritual did you have to do to get that blue check?
There's a lot of bribing, a lot of threatening, but it
hand greasing.
It was kind of funny because I told all my Twitter friends when they opened up the verification again, because I tried to get verified in the past and they were like, screw off. And I told all my Twitter buddies, I was like, hey guys, I'm going to go for a blue check mark this time. They're like, oh yeah, good luck. And then all of a sudden, I get verified and everyone's like, oh my God, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm just an important person now.
I always wonder, because I saw somebody who had 500 followers on Twitter and had a blue check. I'm like, really?
It doesn't have anything to do with your followers, actually. It has to do with if Twitter can verify that you are who you say you are and you are somewhat significant in a certain industry, then they will verify you. So I just had to convince them that I was some type of journalist, and they were like, okay.
Apparently it worked.
Well, I've been publishing articles on some accredited news sites for the past couple years, And so
Oh, okay.
I just pointed that to them. I was like, hey,
Mhm.
here you go. And as long as they looked at the website and they're like, yeah, this website's legit, then they were like, okay, you are who you say you are. So here's your blue check mark.
Can I borrow your check mark?
No.
It's like, no, you can't have it. Can't have it. Well, folks, there's 10 of you in here watching with us. We have Matt Kadish from the Salty Nerd podcast hanging with us, and so glad he's here. We're going to run through our chat because without the chat, we pretty much just be here, talking to each other. It's not as much fun. So we have Snortapoopas Q Burr who says hello, humans and other critters. Well, hello to you too. Always glad seeing you here. And let's see, we have CJ, my graphic artist, in the chat who put together that awesome thumbnail. So thank you
I think
so
that's the
much.
only picture of me without a hat in existence. So
Well, it looks good. It looks good. I'm like, when I looked at that and I'm like, wow, that just makes me realize how much my LinkedIn picture sucks. I don't hang out there very much.
I very rarely wear a suit. I hate wearing pants. So that
Mhm.
getting that picture was quite the ordeal for me.
Yeah,
Oh,
hard it is
man.
holding this pompadour up every day.
Make it gravity defying.
Just like my belly. It's very gravity defying.
Well, we have Ram Bam 3000 from the UK. Have no fear, the weasel is here.
Is that the Pauly Shore weasel?
Squeeze the juice.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that in the longest time.
I was going through Limp Bizkit videos today, right? So I kept seeing him and like break stuff in the other videos, and I'm like, why is he humping the speaker? Why? You don't remember the break stuff video?
No.
Oh, dude.
No, I just remember him seeing him in certain movies.
Yeah, Pauly Shore was very much an 80s and 90s phenomenon.
He was.
Kids nowadays don't know anything about the weasel.
Encino Man in the army now.
How you doing, buddy?
Buddy, you gotta squeeze the juice.
No, it's Wheeze the Juice.
Squeeze the juice.
No, it was Wheezing the Juice.
I gotta get better audio equipment.
I just remember when I finally got to visit Encino in LA. I'm like, this looks nothing like Encino from Encino Man.
Yeah. Where's my caveman? I want to be cool. Where is this?
Brendan Fraser back when he was fat.
Oh yeah, I saw a picture of him recently. I'm like, wow, he doesn't look bad. It's like I remember him as the really young Brendan Fraser.
George of the Jungle style Brendan.
Yeah,
Fraser.
George of the Jungle.
Now he's up there with Steven Seagal in terms of body type.
Yeah,
I'm right here.
Yeah, we know. We know.
Yeah. Squeeze the juice. Yeah, I thought it was squeeze the juice. I've been saying squeeze the juice forever.
See, squeeze the juice is too pedestrian.
Yeah.
For Pauly Shore, he had to go a step further, and it was wheeze the juice.
Now, an important question to add to this, since we're talking about Pauly Shore and importance, and Pauly Shore never seem to fall in the same sentence, hardly ever anymore. Biodome or in the army now?
Biodome.
Biodome, definitely.
100%.
Definitely. The Popcast for a $2 super chat. Thank you so very, very, very much for that. I appreciate it. I love me some salty nerds, Wink.
They're going to be on my live stream tonight, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, we got Brian from the Popcast and Salty Trekker. And we're going to be talking about all the bad writing mistakes in Star Trek Picard Season 1.
How y'all going to fit that? You got a time limit on that?
2 hours.
I don't think that's going to work.
Well, just do the whole series. The only thing that was not written incorrectly was the ending credits.
So we've got our talking points already planned out. We're going to try to fit in as many as we can in 2 hours' time. But if you watch our Thursday night live streams on the Salty Nerd video channel, it's always about bad writing. And I have a little panel of experts who come on, and we cover different stuff. Last week we had Ethan Van Sciver on to talk about the Green Lantern movie.
Sunbeam.
Yep, and we've had we have some actual novelists who come on who are experts in their field, and we talk about actual storytelling stuff as opposed to this movie sucked. But we go into why it sucked and how it could have been better and the mistakes that were made.
And that's always good, to do, because it's one thing, like I tell people, it's not enough for you to tell me that you didn't like it and it sucked. You need to explain why exactly why
Yeah.
that
Like
is.
I did a whole live stream on Star Trek Discovery.
I'm
And
sorry.
I went through all the issues with that series. And yeah, like it's kind of funny. Like every week we just kind of take on either a new movie or TV show or some type of topic, and we break it down why it sucks, why it's bad, and how you can avoid it as a storyteller.
Right.
Matt, can I?
Oh, go ahead real quick before I get a.
While we're there, before we go off on the subjects, I want to ask quickly, since you've been doing all of this stuff, do you have any inclination or feeling that the way or the art of right form, especially in scripts, is slowly dying based on how newer minds are coming in? And I use minds loosely.
Well, I think there's been a phenomenon in Hollywood pretty much since the probably 70s that writing isn't something you need to study. It's just something you can do. Like if you know how to string a sentence together, you can be a screenwriter. And there's two classes of writers. There are those who study their craft, and then there are those who just like want to be famous, right? And so I think that there has been a steady decline in people who take their crafts as screenwriters seriously and actually study and try to, grow as a storyteller. And then there are those who are just trying to get stuff made by hook or by crook, and they've got like some connection through their boyfriend's physical trainer or something like that. And so like they try to get these scripts made. And a lot of what's happening in Hollywood, I think more recently, like since the early 2000s, is that you have this new generation of millennial writers who are coming in. And they're coming in through nepotism, and they're more concerned about activism than they are about storytelling. And so they're putting a bunch of stuff into their stories that will please their liberal Hollywood overlords. But it doesn't necessarily, like for instance, with anything with Netflix has a diversity quota for everything they make, where it's like you have to have a gay character or a trans character or a non-binary character or character of color. Like
a checklist. Yeah.
It's like a checklist of stuff. And if you want to be produced by Netflix, you have to have this in your story. Otherwise, Netflix isn't interested. And so you've got, people who pitch to Netflix and they put in all this, SJW stuff because maybe they don't believe in it. Maybe they do. I don't know, but they want to get it made. And so, that's why every Netflix original movie or TV show has all these check boxes that they hit. Activism pisses off audiences because audiences, even if they agree with it, they don't like to be preached to. In fact, they go to entertainment to get away from the political stuff because they just want to sit back, relax, turn their brains off, and be entertained. And so when you put that stuff into your stories, you end up alienating and upsetting your audience ultimately. And I think that's a newer phenomenon that just started with this millennial generation because they're so sheltered and because they didn't earn their way into their positions. They kind of through friends or through family members got put in there. They just feel like they've already made it. They don't need to improve. They know what they're doing. Whereas I think the previous generation of storytellers kind of came up and were mentored and had to work through okay, this is how you tell a story. This is what you do. A lot of them used to come from the publishing world. So magazine writers and book writers, people who understood storytelling. Nowadays, it's hard to find anyone who actually went to a screenwriting seminar, let alone, went through college to get a literature degree or anything like that to actually understand how to tell a story. So,
Sorry.
It's interesting to go ahead, Pastor.
Sorry, I was going to ask, but do you think when you mentioned the whole sheltered upbringing, do you think the sheltered upbringing always being told that whatever they do is always great? I'm not saying all households are like that, but that has created a stall, would you say, or like a mind block of creativity and realizing that even though you're creating something and it might not be perfect, you can always try again, and that lesson's not being taught, especially with this millennial generation of nepotism.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case because when it comes to Hollywood and screenwriting, a lot of the people who go into that, they're either people who kind of scrape their way up while living in LA and by hook or by crook get the right script from the right people, or they come from the LA collective where you have all these industry people who send their kids to the same high schools and stuff like that. And so when they graduate, they have all the right connections because they know the kid of the producer, whatever. Like when I lived in LA, I was doing some online dating, and I ran into the girl who was the daughter of the 2.5 Men series, like Chuck Lorre.
Oh.
And she tried to use that to entice me to date her. She's like, oh, well, maybe my dad could help you out or whatever. And I was like,
that is. I'm sorry. I have to shake my head because I lived in LA for 5 years. So everything that you're saying, I'm like, oh my God, I got a story about that. I got a story about that. I got a story about that, because it is very true about.
I lived there for over a decade.
Oh man. My condolences. I had to get out.
Yeah, so did I.
I tried to get out after a year, but it took me like an additional 4 years to get out of that place. But it's very true. A lot of it, people are running, in the same circles. I would go out to eat with friends, or who, like an actor that I was dating at the time. It's like we couldn't just go to the California Pizza Kitchen in Burbank. No, that wasn't good enough. We had to go to the California Pizza Kitchen in Studio City because he wanted to be seen by certain people, and we couldn't sit across from each other. We had to sit facing where these producers were eating. I'm like, I just want a barbecue pizza. That's all.
I had to sell my Honda and get a BMW just so I wouldn't be looked down upon when I did the valet parking.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally a thing. But to get to Stephen's point, it's not so much that kids aren't being told, oh, your story sucks, even though that's part of it. It's more that, they grow up in this bubble and they have all these connections. And so, like, when they graduate, it's like, oh, can you give the script to your dad who produces the show? And the dad's like, well, it's not right for my show, but I know someone who might want to do it. And so it's this kind of like nepotistic kind of thing that a lot of these kids, even if they don't have people in the industry that are in their family, they know people and they can kind of work their way up that way. And so you have very little who are actually going forward based off of merit. Like, they don't actually study story structure. They don't actually write good stuff. And they don't kind of earn their stripes before being, kind of put into the industry. They're just people who kind of grew up in the industry, and therefore they have the right connections, and so they're able to get stuff made. And that's always been kind of a portion of the Hollywood experience. But it seems like more and more nowadays, it's more closed off than ever to outsiders who might actually have talent and should be nurtured and fostered. Like, if you just look at the Star Wars story group that Kathleen Kennedy created, like, that story group was meant to kind of help foster stories across all the different Star Wars media, books, TV shows, movies, video games. And she hired a group of people that had no experience telling stories. They were just basically there as yes men and people who could do a little bit of research to make sure that whatever continuity they had left after, discontinuing the EU was kind of followed. And so, like, that's the wrong way to go about doing it. If you look at a very successful story, like writer's room for like a TV show or something like that, like, those are the people who, they jive very well with one another. They know what they're doing. They're able to kind of plot stuff out and figure stuff out ahead of time. And that's the type of writers group that you want going forward with, a series or movie or what have you. And as opposed to, we got the Lucasfilm story group. That was just a bunch of Kathleen Kennedy yes men who agreed with her politics. That's what it came down to. I should say yes women, because I don't think there were any guys in that story group. So
you're muted.
I didn't want to have people hear me typing, and it sounds like bullets because I type like 120 words per minute. There were at least two. And I know there was at least one of them because they had the one black guy in the Lucasfilm story group in the middle of the group picture.
Yeah, I got to get that virtue.
Yeah, you gotta tick all those boxes, right? And I almost want to say it's in addition to LA, and I'll get to all your super chats in a moment. You guys have been so generous. One of the things that I'm noticing is, even like you say, Netflix, even with some of their foreign productions, I'm starting to see this. Like, I watch a lot of telenovelas, and you notice there's agenda items that are getting slipped into that as well that never used to be. So
Netflix has a mandate. I think the owners basically said, we want to promote more diversity and stuff like that. And so they made it mandatory for all of their original stuff to have these, these elements in them, even if they don't belong in the story, they're kind of like shoehorned in there.
Yeah.
Which is a real shame, because I feel like you can, there's nothing wrong with promoting diversity and all this other stuff, but the way that Netflix goes about doing it, it just feels so ham-fisted and in your face.
It really is. It really is, because there's, like, for example, there's Nigerian movies that are on Netflix that I love seeing. I can't see a diversity mandate being pushed on them. It doesn't work.
Yeah, well, if you really want to get your brain in a twist, it's like, what if a black filmmaker wants to make a story about a white guy? Will Netflix accept it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where, does it need to be out in the forefront, or can it be subtle? And the answer is usually no, it can't be subtle. I mean, even their remake of The Dark Crystal, they had to shoehorn in a gay couple amongst the alien creatures in there. It was very strange.
It's honestly getting to the point where that happens, I just immediately tune out, because it's like it's not something that's germane to the story. They're just doing it, just to.
Yeah, I mean, there is a difference between having that be kind of integral and organic to the
Right.
telling, as opposed to it just being there. Like, I think The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is a good example of this. Where they basically shoehorned in every possible diversity quota they could think of in that movie, whether it belonged, or that show, whether it belonged there or not. And most of it didn't belong there. Like, it just didn't make any sense being in there. But it was there anyway, and it was because, like, oh, this is a show for teen audiences. We want teenagers to be exposed to this so that they can be more accepting of it when they're adults, blah, blah, blah.
But with that, sorry, Matt, but with that, did you watch the series of the Sabrina? Because all that aside, I saw what you're talking about, but I still enjoyed most of it. I found it. Hey, everyone has a guilty pleasure. It's not like I'm going, hey, I love Discovery. You should see my bed set. I have all the bed sheets and blankets.
For some who don't know, can we please explain what this show is? Because I've never heard of it before.
So if you ever watched the old Melissa Joan Hart show, The Adventures of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, this was a Netflix adaptation of that was a lot darker and more adult. It kind of focused on the...
Oh, Sabrina, sorry. I couldn't hear you well enough. All right. Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
From the Archie comics, The Adventures of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and this was The Chilling Adventures. And so it was much more focused on the devil and, like a lot of like crazy stuff. And I actually watched the first season with my girlfriend. My girlfriend got to the end of the first season. She was like, I can't watch this show anymore. It's horrible. And I was like, it is horrible, but I stuck with it a little bit longer than she did, because everyone I knew was like, oh, it's such a good show. I was like, are they watching the same show I'm watching? So I kept watching it. I eventually came to the conclusion, like, no, it's just bad. It's just plain bad. And I stopped about midway through season 2, I believe. But it only lasted 4 seasons on Netflix before getting canceled, I believe.
But if you're able to go through this series and not automatically, like, how a lot of us have the vision to see these things, to see that, like, as you said, the ham fisting within these type of ideals, agenda pushing, all this stuff, and able to push past it, is there still worthwhile content within this series, or I should just put it in that guilty pleasure closet and lock it up and never tell a soul again?
Well, in addition to all the agenda stuff, it was also a very poor adaptation, and it was also very badly written for the most part, and I just didn't care for it personally.
Okay. That's cool.
I do know a lot of people who enjoyed the show because it was like really dark and gritty and kind of off the wall, but to me, that gets old really quick. You need to have more substance to something to keep my interest in it. So, it just wasn't for me.
Well, let me ask this question. So where do you see this whole diversity for diversity's sake thing going? Do you think that companies like Netflix are going to get a clue when they start losing money because people aren't interested in these things? Or is it just more of like, we don't care about the money, it's about the message that we want to get out there?
Well, the thing about Netflix is they have over 200 million subscribers paying like $17 a month. They're not hurting for money. They're kind of like the same business model as HBO used to have, where it's like, hey, we have our subscribers. If you don't like it, F you. Like they have F you money, so they can afford to do this type of thing without worry. Like if they ever start losing subscribers en masse, like we're talking, tens of millions of subscribers like unsubscribing, and staying unsubscribed as opposed to like quitting for like a month and then coming back.
Right.
Then maybe you'd see that because they have so much debt that they need to like pay off month to month. But honestly, like I don't see them changing anytime soon. I don't see Hollywood really changing because a lot of this stuff, it's not about the money for the people involved. It's about the ideology, and it's like, I'm promoting my ideals, and if you don't like it, you're the Nazi, and I don't.
Right.
Well,
right.
Isn't that the problem with Netflix though? Isn't the guy that Kevin Smith was like running under? The head. He's literally like an activist. If you look through his history and stuff, was it Ted or Todd? That one dude, and you can see just from one person how everything seems to like, you do this way or don't do it at all.
I'm a little bit more lenient on Kevin Smith than I think a lot of
I don't hate him. I don't hate him.
I actually enjoyed the first 5 episodes of the Masters of the Universe remake that he was responsible for. I feel like he's got a plan for it. I think it was a shame that Netflix decided to break up the season as opposed to releasing it all in one.
Yep.
But I can certainly see, like, Netflix viewers are kind of like battered wives. It's like we keep hoping that they'll change and be better, and like we stick with them, but then like they just keep beating us down. And so when a beloved property like Masters of the Universe comes out, it's very obvious that they switch the focus from He-Man to Teela and stuff like that. People get upset, and they're like, I wanted He-Man, but you're giving me Teela. And it's kind of like, well, maybe if they got the full 10 episodes, we would have gotten the He-Man that we wanted, and the first half with Teela might not have been so bad. I personally liked it. I didn't think it was all that bad of a series, but again, that's just me. So.
Oh, that's it. Well, everyone has their opinion. Like I tell people, I know for me, I didn't particularly like it. That was just my opinion. However, my big issue with Kevin Smith was just not being honest about what it was in the first place. If your focus is going to be Teela, then that's what you need to sell it as, and let the product, stand on its own.
Well, there's also a point of view issue there. Yeah, there's also a point of view issue there where I think to get Kevin Smith, the focus is on He-Man because he's been behind all 10 episodes, so we've only seen half of that. So it might have been the first 5 episodes are just a setup for the real He-Man story to come. I mean, I honestly don't know.
Yes, it's possible. It's just that, but I think that also again goes to the point of if they would have just released all 10, then we could have seen the whole, the whole arc. But that's
Kevin
kind
Smith
of how.
Have any control over that?
No, and I'm not saying he does. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying that if that was done, I think a lot of I won't really say anger, but just say kind of just like we don't really like the bait and switch. That really wouldn't have been much of an issue. Some people liked it. I personally did not, but that was just me.
What's funny is
we'll see what happens.
If you watch Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the entire plot of that movie is basically what happened with him and this He-Man show. It's all about internet trolls.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
I do
remember that part at the end, but I do want to get to these super chats because folks have been very, very generous and they've been very, very, very patient. So I would really like to get to them. First of all, we have Deranged Lunatic for 99 cents. Thank you so much for that Doomicorn sticker. So I'm going to have to hook you up with the Doomicorn. My Doomicorn is getting lost. Here we go.
I am the Pegasus. I come bearing horrible tidings of war from the...
Yeah. Less talky, more flappy.
We have that one. And let's see. And we have Natalie and Michelle. I did see this. Your $1.99 super chat. Thank you with the 2 hearts. I guess you were saying it didn't send your message, but it did. So I don't know if YouTube zapped it and we happen to get it here in StreamYards, but I do have it. So thanks so much, you ladies. Definitely check out their channel if you haven't had a chance to. And we have Abu Nas El Presidente from the Dark Council, and thank you for being a channel member, my dear. Says, sending my love to my awesome producer, the Dark Council. Thank you. Hope you have an awesome stream. Salute to Matthew, who's in the hot seat, and Fat Steven, cool as ice.
No.
Thank you.
And you have one more from Brett.
Okay, let's see here. Brett Cohen, super sticker. And let's see which super sticker. How's it
How's it go?
going? Shiba Inu dog. I love that dog. Thank you. Thank you, Brett Cohen, for that. I appreciate that.
I wanted to quickly say two things. First of all, to the chat, like that's the whole point of having discussion and opinion. Not every person's going to be the same. Not every person's going to have the same like or dislike when it comes to any type of things. Like we said earlier, I kind of enjoyed some of Kadish. At the opposite of Kadish, I liked some of Sabrina, and he liked the He-Man 5 episodes. Everyone's going to have a difference of opinion, but it doesn't make them any wrong or any more right. It's just how we perceive things and enjoy things. The second question is, I have a share for you, and I want to know if this is true. If you think Tila is actually Dean Venture.
Actually,
It's right down. It's in the bottom. From Venture Brothers.
It's not that. It's not that.
I'm sorry.
I'm not. I'm not gonna get. I'm just gonna say I have my issues in it, but then again, I'm not the producer.
Oh.
I'm just a fan, and it kind of
Oh,
goes
okay.
back to that adage that my grandmother says: "What you eat doesn't necessarily make me go to the bathroom." You know, so.
But I will say, I think I loved Orko. Orko, when he was in that one scene with the magic, and he was finally realizing he can do it without his wand, and that whole relationship with Evil Lynn, like they nailed it there. And I'm sorry, that was heartfelt even for me, and I love that.
It's all right.
All right.
I'm
He's
not
like, I
gonna-
need a new Fat Steven. That was all right.
I'm not gonna hate on anybody
Orko was
who
one of my
liked that.
favorite characters in the original series.
Yeah.
So I liked what they did with him, and I think that they're going to be doing more stuff with him in the future.
So we'll see what happens. I know just for me, I really don't have any interest in watching any more of the episodes. But folks, you love it, go ahead and keep loving it. And if you don't, you tune out and watch something else. So, folks, we have 18 people in here watching. We have Matt Kadish here of the Salty Podcast. So let me ask you, how did the Salty Nerd Podcast get started?
Well, our host, Alex, he started up a podcast with some friends of his who were, I believe, in Chicago. And they were kind of hit or miss, because everyone had families and scheduling didn't always work out. And I had met Alex on Twitter, and he introduced me to our other co-host, Matt Vader. And we were kind of we would get together for coffees on Mondays, and we could just kind of hang out and talk about, movies and TV shows. And one time Alex came in, he was complaining about, these guys he was doing the podcast with never being available to do the podcast. And me and Vader were like, hey, we live here. Why don't you just do the podcast with us? And he's like,
Right.
That's a good idea. And so basically we started going to Alex's house on Monday mornings instead of going to coffee. And we would just record ourselves doing what we basically did at coffee, which was talking about movies and TV shows. And then when the lockdown hit in early 2020, we were like, well, what if we tried actually doing this professionally? What if we tried to make like a professional production and get it out there and have like a format and stuff like that? Because at the time we were just kind of talking about recent movie news and stuff like that. And we decided to go with a more evergreen strategy where we kind of pick a theme or a topic, and then we watch movies that kind of fit within that theme. And it would be more of a comedy show than it would be like a movie review show where the purpose is to have fun and laugh, as opposed to actually like diving deep into movies and stuff like that. And so for a year we did that where it was just audio, where we were just kind of like doing the podcasting stuff. And then this year we got into the YouTube space, and we kind of refined our format. And now we're kind of like a fun little talk show that is just meant to have fun and entertain people and talk about stuff that we love to hate, which is the Salty Nerd. So that's pretty much the long and short of it, the abbreviated version of
You
our.
look happy. When you're talking about them, your face got a little flushed. You start smiling a lot more, and it's like that face right there shows that not only you're happy where you have come from with these people, and that you don't regret it, and you don't. That's a really good, nice face you have right there. They make you happy thinking about them.
Well, I get to work with my fiance and my two best friends, so it's a lot of fun, and we've been seeing a lot of growth and a lot of success. In fact, we've had a lot of people from the TV show confirm that they watch our our YouTube channel and they listen to our podcast, because we actually do dedicated episodes to reviewing that show on Apple TV, which is the Jason Momoa show C. And it's kind of weird to think that like the cast and crew are out there listening to us and laughing at like what we have to say and stuff like that. And so like that kind of just inspires us to do more of what we're doing. And we've really gotten into our membership area recently, saltynerdclub.com, and we're doing exclusive episodes for our members and doing a lot of, like, we just did Dad Joke Chicken on our last recording day, where we had Alex and Vader kind of like tell each other dad jokes and see who could go the longest without laughing. And that was a lot of fun. And so like we do a lot of that goofy stuff for our membership area, and we just have a blast doing it. Like I think that during lockdown, if we didn't have this podcast, we'd have all gone crazy, because it gave us an excuse to come together and talk about something we love and just have fun.
I know that's what a lot of people, I'm sorry, I mean to interrupt you. I know that's what a lot of people who got into YouTube since, the Wu-Tang flu kicked off. They were just like, if we didn't have this to do, they would have like, gone stir crazy. So it's interesting how much that has like launched people getting into YouTube.
Yeah, we had wanted to get into YouTube a lot earlier, but I kind of wanted us to be able to do a talk show style, kind of like a Joe Rogan or a Timcast type thing with like the multi-camera setup. And it took a long time for me to figure out how to do that setup without spending like $10,000, $20,000 to do it. And so like I had a small budget, and I was able to figure out, okay, here's how we can do this. And now, like, while we're recording, we've got cameras on all four of us, and we're able to get like our facial expressions and get the vibe of us actually interacting together. And I think it kind of sets us apart from, a lot of the stuff, no offense to the people who do live streaming, but, the talking heads and like the talking nipples, which is what I call like Steven Seagal up there and stuff like that. It kind of sets us apart because we're actually doing like a multi-camera show, as opposed to just like, the different windows on like the Zoom call type thing, which are perfectly fine, but we wanted to do something that kind of made us stand out, and that took a long time to figure out. And
that's fine. I've seen other channels who have done that, and I'm like, that's a really cool setup. Like one podcast, I think it's from the Blaze. It has like the guys from Duck Dynasty that are on there, and they have like a multi. It's freaking awesome. I love it. And they have a multi-camera setup too. Also a couple of other ones do too. So it's Crowder has one. So yeah, it's like no offense taken at all. It's what makes things, different and interesting. So kudos to you for putting that together.
Yeah, and we still do this style on our own live streams, like My Bad Writing live streams, just like this. We use StreamYards. We have a Saturday morning live stream called Home Gang, where we just get together. It's like a chill stream. We just kind of riff and talk about whatever. And then Alex has his Monday night live stream where he interviews different people. So it's all good. We wanted a more polished version for our podcast.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead, Fassi.
Well, I don't show my face. That's pretty much what it is. I haven't got the comfortability level yet, and a lot for some people it is kind of putting themselves out there on the next tier level, because the internet's crazy. And I respect you guys for being able to not only do that type of setup where you're willing to go all out. I couldn't do that. I respect that, but I couldn't do that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because Alex had that same hang up where he's like, I don't want to show my face. What if I want to run for office somewhere down the line? Vader was very much nervous about public speaking. He's like, I stutter. So like he's always very nervous about like when we did our live streaming from the Star Trek convention this last August. He was very nervous for that because he wasn't sure like how it was going to come across. Jude, she's like, I have to spend an hour doing hair and makeup before I get on camera, and me, like I come from a behind the scenes type thing because I was a director and a writer in Hollywood, so I was never in front of the camera. I was always behind the camera. And I got the face for radio. Nobody wants to see me up on there. So like we all had our little like things to overcome. But once you start doing it, it's just like, it's done. Get it out.
Is this better?
It's fine. Yeah.
Oh, we can see it. We can see it. Also, thank you so much for the $1.49 super sticker. And it is a diamond as usual. And you are a diamond, my dear. Thank you so very much for that. And thank you for being a channel member. Let's see. Yeah, live stream. Yeah, I mean it's interesting with live streaming. Like I know myself, I did not have my face out there from the beginning at all. I wasn't comfortable with it. I just didn't really think it just was not something comfortable. And I'm still not 100% comfortable with it. It's weird seeing myself on screen. But when I saw some Jamaican lady on YouTube showing her face cooking in her kitchen, I'm like, if she can do it, what's my problem? But that was just my moment.
I would break the internet with my sexiness. That's why.
There you go.
No joke.
Everyone's got a reason.
I want to say one thing though to Trey, if that's right. Trey, I think it's Trey McCall. You're always going to be nervous. It's like public speaking, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. If you don't want to do it yourself, find a friend you trust that wants to do it with you, and go and talk about the first thing that you love, something that makes you happy, something you're comfortable talking about. And then later on, if you want to do it again, try something else that's along the same format but a little different. It just takes time and practice. It's a lot.
Well, let me ask this question, Matt. Are you, even when you're doing your recordings, how do you deal with nervousness doing that? Or does it even faze you at all because you've been doing it for so long?
Yeah, I've never been a nervous person. I've always been one of those people where, like, when you're staring down the firing squad, you're just like, take your best shot, as opposed to like, oh God, please don't shoot. And I think a lot of that just came from my experience in Hollywood, because I was out there for 10 years trying to make it in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You have to develop a rhinoceros skin, in that like you get a lot of rejection, you get a lot of people telling you that you suck or you're ugly or like whatever, and you just have to learn to like deal with it. And once you get that, that rhinoceros skin, it never goes away. And so like to me, I know that my co-hosts, because they're new to online fame, or like whatever you want to call it, they get kind of like weirded out about stuff. Like when we were at the Star Trek convention this last August, we had a big booth there, and we were live streaming from our booth, and we were interviewing people as they came by.
Right.
And so like the guys were who were doing the live streaming, Alex and Vader, were kind of nervous. And then like I had people coming up who were fans of my books, and they were like geeking out and asking me to like autograph stuff. And my co-hosts are sitting there like, Is Kadish famous? What's going on? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm kind of a big deal. I don't know if you saw the blue check mark or not, but so me personally, I don't get nervous about this stuff. I'm always like, jump head first into the deep end and learn to swim as you go. Whereas people might be like, I want to start it in the kiddie pool and work my way up. So to me, it's more like, it's just something that if I want it, I have to go for it. Fortune favors the bold type thing. So I've never really dealt with nervousness. I used to do acting when I was younger in high school. I'd do the theater plays in high school, and a lot of people get stage fright or get nervous. And even if I did feel a little bit of nerves before going on the stage, it was like, I'm going to go out there and the spotlight's going to be on me, and I'm going to make people laugh, I'm going to entertain people, and I'm going to be awesome. And so like that was always kind of like my mentality behind the stuff. Where it's like, don't think about them. Don't think about yourself. Just focus on the task at hand and do it the best you can. And if you do that, people are going to respond to it. And so that's kind of the philosophy. I get a lot of crap from my co-hosts because like I'm always there cracking the whip. It's like, don't do this, be professional. Don't be, so stop clearing your throats into the mic, stuff like that. And they give me crap for it, but we've now got professional Hollywood people watching our podcast and being like, this is the most professionally produced show we've seen for this type of material. Kudos to you. We're big fans now. And they're like, oh, wow, Kadish was right, ironically enough.
When does He-Man get the interview?
I don't know. I have to reach out to his people.
I'll put on a shirt.
Have his people call. I'll call his people.
No, we would need him shirtless for this.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh
true.
yeah.
But it doesn't work. So there's like over 22 you people in here watching. Matt Kadish is our guest. So the other question that I want to ask you before we get to our other topic, because I know I first was talking to Jude and just hanging out with her, and I kind of knew who you were, but you weren't really on my radar until that hot mess with Mangold popped off with
Yeah.
Indiana Jones 5. And apparently he tried to throw shade at you guys for your bottle of corks. What was up with that? I have to, because Jude gave me her version, but I want to hear your version.
Well, Jude loves wine. And so she had this thing where she would just collect the corks of all the wine bottles that she killed over the years. And it was kind of funny because we just have it so our studio's in my house. It's down in my former dining room, and we've soundproofed it. We got all this equipment down there, and that's where we record our show. And so we've got a little bar in the breakfast nook area where she had her little jar of corks there. And when Alex shared a picture with Mangold during that whole kerfluffle where it was like the four of us, and just in the background, I didn't even notice it. And I looked at that picture like 1,000 times. In the background, you can see that jar of corks on top of the bar. And so Mangold thought he's going to be smart and make fun of our jar of corks. He's like, "Oh yeah, your studio looks great with your throw light and your jar of corks." And when we realized what he was talking about, we kind of made a meme of it and took that jar of corks. It's now in the studio. Every time you see a shot with Jude in it, you can see the jar of corks. We named it Corky. That's the name of the jar of corks. We made his own T-shirt and all that stuff that you can get at saltynerdstore.com.
Wait, question.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought about actually making corky wine corks themselves, like actual resealers? We can.
Not really. We're so busy as it is. We don't want to add more to our plate. But yeah, so that was just kind of what happened. Where Mangold pointing out something really nebulous to us, and we made it into a thing, and now it's part of our show. So
I like that, and it's the reason why. I think one of the reasons that whole thing resonated with a lot of fans is that so many of us kind of get a little tired of the talking down just because we're fans, just because we love certain properties, So that was just great, actually, I thought, because you can't even buy that kind of publicity, because you got this guy who, nobody really knew who he was, and we found out who he was, and the fact that he decided to punch down at you guys, that was so much publicity for you guys. I'm just soak that the heck up.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned it. It was very strange because when I wrote the tweet that caught his attention, I didn't tag him in it. I didn't even know he was doing the movie. It was just something that I fired off late one night when I was sitting on my couch just thinking about stuff, which tends to be the stuff that gets me into the most trouble for whatever reason. But I think he mistook me for an actual journalist. And so he came at me really hard. And for 12 hours straight, he was just tweeting up a storm at everyone in that thread. And, we were sitting here I can't believe this guy is doing this, because it's actually bringing a lot more attention to my criticisms than it probably initially was worth. And then everyone started inviting us on their streams to talk about it. And that actually got us monetized on YouTube. It got us a 1,000 subscriber mark. We're now at 2,200, I think, somewhere around there.
I have a question.
Well, thank you. For one second. So thank you for folks who didn't know, and my mistake for not saying this earlier. James Mangold is the director of Indiana Jones 5.
Yep.
There is no 5 or 4. There's only 3.
According to IMDb, there's 5, but me personally, there's only 3.
I did have a question though. Do you think that he was the type of person that was just going through Twitter, people search their names up on YouTube or Google, seeing if anyone's talking about them, and somehow he just caught your tweet randomly as the first thing on his feed, and he was just someone doesn't like me. Oh no.
No, I don't think it was that. I think that someone forwarded my tweet to him through a website. At least this is according to James Mangold. Okay, this is the story I got from him, where basically my tweet was featured on a news article on some clickbait website, and he was under the impression that I had written the article. And so that was he thought I was spreading false rumors as a legitimate journalist, and he needed to take me down a peg. He didn't know I was just some rando on Twitter tweeting my opinions, and came at me hard and was punching down massively. So it was one of those cases of mistaken identity, I think. I don't think he was like specifically out there trolling for people like taking him on, because I mean, like, he doesn't do this every day. You know, he doesn't just start going after people.
I didn't mean trolling.
Yeah, but I almost want to say, and again, you know, this is, you know, Monday night quarterback kind of thing. But you would think that even if there was a case of mistaken identity, if it's more like, hey, you know, I saw this X, Y, and Z, can we clear this up, and not go on like a 12-hour Twitter tirade about it.
I got to give him this. The first time Matt followed me on Twitter, I thought it was an alternate account of Review Tech USA. Not gonna lie, because you have the same. If you look at his picture and look at Review Tech USA, you have very similar facial features.
Oh, I don't even know how
thought
that
it was
is.
like what? Tech Review.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know what the.
Review Tech USA is a very sexy man, so I take that.
He is. I love his. I mod his channel too. He's a very, very sexy cucumber.
Does he look like Jason Momoa?
Him and Cordering were the ones going at it not too long ago.
That doesn't answer my question. Does he look like Jason Momoa?
There's some bad blood.
He does if you squint and then use the skew option on your picture.
Well, shoot, that's a no. I'm just kidding.
Looks like he ate Jason Momoa.
You know, that's what it is.
I'm sorry,
but
not enough have.
That's just me being being facetious. But folks, let's see. I'm gonna go to another topic here. So I hear, Matt, that you are an Orville fan. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, I've been loving the Orville since it premiered about 1,000 years ago, and been eagerly awaiting season 3 for 2 years now. So
rip Norm Macdonald.
I know for me, after watching Star Trek Picard, which I gave it a fair shot. I wanted that show to be really good, and it just wasn't for me. I had to cleanse my brain by watching the Orville, and I'm like, I don't know why I hadn't started watching this show sooner, and I like binged on all 2 seasons, and I'm like, where's season 3? Well, it's on its way. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I need season 3 like now.
Yeah, it was interesting, the time frame in which the Orville came out, because it came out alongside Discovery, and you couldn't get a more diametrically opposed couple TV shows, where Star Trek was going all dark and dystopian, and the Orville was just doing what classic Star Trek did. And it was one of those things where, like, oh, the Orville is getting it right. And then Disney bought out Fox, and the Orville went on hiatus, and it got moved to a paywall Hulu thing. And I feel like I'm very nervous for season 3, because I feel like they're going to use season 3 as an excuse to cancel it. So
I really hope not, because the Orville was such a joy to watch. And within like the first episode, I cared about what happened, or what was happening, with these characters. And it was like, it was fresh, it was different, and it felt more like Star Trek than what I was getting, like with Picard. Like, it reminded me of, like the Gene Roddenberry type Star Trek.
When it was on network television, it had a big audience who could watch it for free. It had to be family friendly, because it had to comply with FCC guidelines, so families could watch it together. The budget was kept low. Now that it's on Hulu, it's behind a paywall. I don't know if they're going to be incorporating any like curse words or anything like that into the show now that it's on a streaming.
Yeah, you got a good point with that.
I don't think so.
And also they raised the budget, and so like if it doesn't get the views that it needs to justify the budget, then I could see Disney being like, you know what, let's just cancel this and cut our losses on it.
I just want to see more Blue Man Group just sneezing their crap everywhere. I just want to see that again, because that was the best joke.
Jelly Man.
Yeah. I liked Patrick Warburton's Alien. Bitchin'.
I like the fact that Borges and his partner, they got hooked on smoking.
Oh yeah, and
Or
mustaches.
Yeah.
or the android playing the prank but removing his leg, and he's hopping into the bridge. He's like, "Where's my leg?"
Isaac is great.
Oh.
The fact that Isaac has become that type of like mechanical babysitter in that family format, it's like he's doing the data without really looking like data. You know what I mean? He has that same type of learning aspect when it comes to trying to understand humanity. It's
and I believe they filmed all of Norm Macdonald's stuff before he passed. So there's definitely going to be Norm Macdonald is going to have a presence in season 3. So.
Well, awesome. Well, folks, since I don't want to get claimed, and this is breaking from Deadline today, so you can go to Deadline and see it. Season 3 of the Orville is going to premiere March 10th of next year. March 10th of next year. So
awesome.
I can't wait. I do hope that they keep with the spirit of the previous 2 seasons. I'd be extremely disappointed if they go off the reservation, for lack of a better term.
There is something, because you have this screenshot right here. You know, the dude in the back, the doctor in the back. I was hoping for just once he would kind of quote Seinfeld, like, Jerry Seinfeld is a very bad man. Very bad man.
Did you see that dog licking its balls in the background?
Oh my God.
It's like I couldn't stop seeing it.
That's all I saw.
That's all I saw, yeah.
Yeah. He's getting deep in there.
Well,
Hey, man. Sorry.
Rambam 3000 says, to be honest, oh, you're talking to Brett Cohen. I don't think McFarlane's sense of humor works in live action as well as it does animated.
It's kind of hit or miss, because Ted was brilliant, but Ted 2 sucked, and A Million Ways to Die in the West, even though it had a few gems in it, was overall not very funny. But I feel like this isn't so much a Seth MacFarlane show as it is like a Brandon Braga show, because he was the one who was the showrunner on Voyager, and he's the one who's like the head writer.
Agree.
You also have a lot more freedoms when it comes to animated sitcom shows and series, because you can just pretty much draw anything and get away with it. With this, you have to go within the limitation of the actors as well as their delivery, because they might not all have the same type of what's the word? I guess flow to actually nail the type of humor we would see, where you can just do a cutaway and it's Peter holding his knee going, and then it's an at later on, or at. You know, like, I think it all depends on what the limitations are. But
I know for me, I did not like Family Guy. It didn't grab me. Cleveland show grabbed me, but the Family Guy I wasn't really that interested in. So when I first heard about the Orville and that Seth MacFarlane was involved, I was like, I'm not really interested in it. But I'm glad I gave it a chance. And Matt, like you're saying, the fact that because I didn't know Brandon Braga was involved.
Oh, there are a lot of
old
school Star Trek writers involved in the show, and that's on purpose. And that's why it feels so much like classic Star Trek, TNG era Star Trek anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of Voyager people in the show.
Yeah, and the thing is, I was not a fan of Voyager. It just...
What? Sorry.
You know this.
I still go, what? Like, I might have been a huge fan, but, like, I don't know.
What?
I can reappreciate a little bit more now after watching Pecan and Disclaimer. What should I call it right now?
Well, it's kind of like there's a Trek for everybody. It's kind of like what I told
Enterprise. I didn't like that.
It's Enterprise. I didn't really get into. Original series. I give the respect for what it is. That it was the first, and that's where all the others, the others that come from. TNG, I loved for the longest time, and then DS9 replaced it. Voyager, with Voyager, I heard it got better later on, but by that time, I had pretty much lost interest. It just wasn't my type of show.
That brings a good question. I want to add this. Do you think if let's say they don't want to no longer fund a real life adaptation of Orville, and what happens if Seth tries to push like they did with Star Trek TOS, the animated series, and we get an Orville animated series? Because we already have the comic. Do you think it was possible they could push it towards that?
I think one of the things you have to remember here is that Seth MacFarlane had a big deal with Fox. Fox was like his studio. They were the ones who produced Family Guy and American Dad, and I believe his movies were kind of based at Fox. Now that Disney's taken over, I don't know if he has as much sway with the studio as he did at Fox. So it's a question of whether or not the Disney execs have the same kind of connection and faith with him that the Fox execs had. So if anything, I think that he might jump ship if the Orville kind of gets shut down and go to a different studio and try and do some other stuff over there. Not really sure. I don't follow Seth MacFarlane too closely, so it's hard for me to kind of comment on this, but that would be my guess is that, like, if Disney kind of poo-poos on him, he's not going to want to stick around.
No. He has integrity to a degree.
Exactly. Let's see. Chuck Brewer says, I liked Enterprise more than Voyager. DS9 was number one for me, then TNG Enterprise, then Voyager. Yeah, Enterprise was one of those where I heard about. I think by that time I was just into other things and just going back and watching the reruns of the Trek that I liked, that I didn't feel a pull to see the new one.
What bothered me with, I think, Enterprise, I think I lost interest, is when they were in the decontamination chamber in their underwear, and I'm like, wow, this is like most openings to other adult sites I know about. I don't want to watch this on Trek right now.
Well, the whole thing about Enterprise.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was actually at Paramount Studios when Enterprise was being shot, and the whole thing about Enterprise was that they wanted it to appeal to a fan base outside of the Star Trek fan base, so they tried to make it sexier, they tried to make it more adult, they changed the theme song to a rock song, like all that stuff, and they didn't even put Star Trek in the title at first. It was just, when it originally premiered, it was just Enterprise, and so like the whole purpose behind that was because they felt like, after TNG, DS9, and Voyager, like the franchise had become kind of stale, and so they wanted to reinvigorate it and appeal to a whole new audience. And that was kind of like the way they were doing it, by showing a little bit more skin, being a little bit sexier, being a little bit more adult. And I don't really think it worked all that well, personally. But
why didn't they just do a series based on the mirror universe and just leave it in there, and then they could have had that type of free reign without actually affecting it in a bad way?
Because Les Moonves, who ran the studio at the time, was a notorious hater of all things sci-fi, and so he poo-pooed a lot of ideas that the Star Trek people brought to them. But also Brandon Braga at the time, I don't know if he still does this or not, but when he was in charge of the writer's room for Star Trek, particularly Voyager, but going into Enterprise, he specifically forbade any hiring of Star Trek fans in the writer's room. And so they would get people who didn't know anything about Star Trek coming in to write the show, because he just didn't like people saying like, oh, you can't do that because this episode of the original series, set this up and you're breaking continuity. Like, he didn't want anyone kind of like holding him back on what he wanted to do with the show. And so you had a lot of non-Star Trek people writing Enterprise, and they just didn't have any respect for the source material.
I was terrified that we were going to see a scene with Captain Archer, and then Al was going to appear out of a window and start talking about Ziggy, and then I'd be out. I'd be like, oh. That's a Quantum Leap joke for those who don't get it.
They're talking about a Quantum Leap reboot right now, aren't they?
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing a reboot on that. It was a good show.
I liked Quantum Leap. I really wish that I would have watched more episodes of it, than I did. It wasn't one that I regularly would tune in to watch, but kind of like if I just happened to be there or I was aware of a certain episode, then I would check it out.
Watch the Robot Chicken parody of it if you have a chance.
Robot Chicken has so many parodies that I love. My favorite being the Star Wars. It's a tie between the Star Wars one and the Cobra Commander one for G.I. Joe. Those are my two favorites. I freaking love those. Those are absolutely great. Well, we're going to move on to our next topic here. Actually, our final topic, because I would love to hear Matt's thoughts on this. So this is from the Wrap. So original Star Wars editor Marcia Lucas says Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams don't have a clue about the franchise. Oh. So for folks who did not know, over this past weekend, Jedi Scum over on Twitter had actually made a post with a quote from a book about Howard Kazanjian, who was a producer on Star Wars, written by, I forget the first initial, but the last name is Rensler, and unfortunately he passed away recently, but this was his book. So apparently that excerpt from that book, which was actually written a couple of years ago, but just now got published, dropped a quote in there from Marsha Lucas. So we're actually going to go down to this quote, and I'm going to actually blow it up, and I will actually let Matt give his feelings on this, where she basically called him out, ran the bus over them, and at the end said, "You can quote me, J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, talk to me."
So are we reading the whole quote here?
Let's see. Now, we won't read the whole quote because we have it up here, but basically, what was your impression when you heard this?
I was so relieved that someone actually said it within the inner circle. So for those of you who don't know, Marsha Lucas was George Lucas's first wife. And when he was making Star Wars, she was his editor for Star Wars. And she's often credited as having saved that movie in the editing room. And shortly after George Lucas hit it big, him and Marsha split up. I don't think they had any kids together, but she was kind of instrumental in the original era of Star Wars for making Star Wars what it was. And to see a quote like this, where she basically is someone who knows Kathleen Kennedy personally and calls her out along with J.J. Abrams for their terrible decision making with the franchise, I really hope that this opens the door to have more people come out and do this, because as long as people toe the line because they're afraid to piss off Disney, or they're afraid to upset Kathleen Kennedy or any other Hollywood muckety muck, like Marsha Lucas, she doesn't care. She's got George Lucas money. She doesn't have a career anymore, so she's free to speak about this without repercussion. But if more people did this, more people held them to account for their bad decision making, then maybe we'd actually start getting a course correction on this stuff, a permanent one, not just a band-aid like The Mandalorian is. So I was really happy to see this, and I kind of hope that Marsha Lucas continues to speak out about this and encourages others to do so as well. You're muted again.
I freaking hate it when I do that.
We've all done it.
Because it's I don't want to hear, because me typing, it was crazy. Because one time I was typing and I had my microphone on. It was back when I first started live streaming, and somebody was like, "Is there somebody shooting bullets outside?" Or what? I'm like, "Oh shoot, I'm sorry. That's how I type." I'm like, "How fast do you type?" 120 words a minute. But I know when I heard this, it felt like a complete relief. The reason being is that it was Marsha Lucas. It wasn't someone I hadn't heard of before. This is someone who's been in this from the beginning. And it felt so good, as a fan of Star Wars and someone who is not particularly happy at all with what Disney is doing with Star Wars. It's okay, it's one thing if you're going to take the IP and do something with it, but actually give us quality storytelling. That's something that's different. But I don't feel like that happened at all. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's the same issue that I bring up every time I talk about Kathleen Kennedy, which is Kathleen Kennedy is a very talented line producer. She's someone who logistically can get movies made. She's really good at running the show when it comes to the logistics of making a movie. So if Steven Spielberg says, "Kathy, I need a 20-foot dinosaur for this scene," she goes out, finds a 20-foot animatronic dinosaur, gets it built, gets it brought to the set, has it done on time and on budget, stuff like that. However, as a creative producer, she's terrible. She is awful. She has no concept of storytelling. She has no concept of characterization. She's more concerned about pushing a political agenda than she is about telling good stories. And Marsha Lucas pretty much says so in this quote, where she says the storylines are terrible, just terrible, awful. And that's absolutely true. And that's absolutely because of Kathleen Kennedy. if you actually had a talented creative producer like Kevin Feige running the show at Star Wars, you'd have had an entire trilogy planned out before you even started shooting. Even if it was just bare bones, you wouldn't have writers like Rian Johnson coming in, not having any direction and making up his own thing that goes counter to what J.J. Abrams was working on at the time. So there's just a lot of dysfunction in Lucasfilm right now, and it's all because of Kathleen Kennedy's leadership as a creative producer. Like if she was still producing, like if she was the head of production at Lucasfilm instead of the CEO, I think she'd probably be doing a good job. But other than that, she's done a terrible job, and I think Marcia Lucas would agree with me on that.
Absolutely. Oh, you guys are I dropped out of Lost, actually. We're talking about J.J. Abrams. Yeah, for me, he couldn't stick the landing with Lost, so I
was such a huge Lost fan. Like I was
me
so
too.
I was so into that show, and I stuck with it. I defended it up until the last season. I was like, these guys have a plan. They know what they're doing. And then by the time the last season started, I watched the first episode of the last season. I was like, oh no, I was wrong. I was horribly, horribly wrong. And by the time we got to the final episode of Lost, I was pissed off because I devoted so much time and effort to theorizing and game theorying and watching this show. And I was like, it was all fake. It was all a lie. They had no idea what they were doing. And that was really the moment I started hating Damon Lindelof with 12 passions. So anything he's involved in anymore, I'm just like, it's going to suck. It's going to be terrible because he's involved in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a betrayal. It was up there with season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's another thing that I was going to say with Game of Thrones. Because like you with Lost, I was watching that was one show where literally every week I was watching, analyzing everything, looking at all the Easter eggs. I'm like, I can't wait for this to just pay off. And it just, JJ could not stick the landing. Like you say, like with season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Well, J.J. Abrams had very little to do with that show after the pilot. Like he directed the pilot, and then Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse took over, and they were the ones really driving that show up until the end. But it also shows the weakness. It also shows the weakness of J.J. Abrams' mystery box theory, which was that show in a nutshell. If you've ever watched this TED Talk on the mystery box, it's complete BS. It's one of the worst concepts you could ever have as a storyteller. Because it basically says it's okay to create questions without answers and the audience will accept it. And that's just not the case.
I have never seen that. And I think I'm going to actually sit down and watch that because I've heard this term mystery box and not in a good way.
Yeah, he gave a full TED Talk explaining the theory behind it. And this was back when he was kind of riding high off of Alias, Mission Impossible 3, Lost, stuff like that. And he coined this term mystery box, which is like you have a box, you don't know what's inside the box, and you present the box to the audience, and it doesn't matter if you ever open the box because that's not the point. The point is the question. That's the thing that pulls people in. That's the thing that gets people theorizing. And so like you never have to get rid of that. It's just what's in the box constantly. Like every new story thread, what's in the box, what's in the box, what's in the box. And if you watch that, when I first saw it, I was like, you know what, that's an intriguing concept. But as time has gone on, the more I've seen it utilized with terrible results, I'm like, this is the worst kind of concept you could have possibly come up with as a storyteller. It's one thing to present a mystery, but if you never resolve that mystery to the point where the audience is satisfied with that, it will come back and create a lot of resentment amongst the people watching your stuff, and that's not a good thing.
It isn't, and I would have to agree with that because I know for me, I love mysteries, and the big payoff with mysteries is solving it
and
at the end.
There's an issue in Hollywood where they think if the audience can guess the outcome that they failed, and so they're constantly trying to subvert expectations by taking what people think and then just doing something different to try to surprise the audience, even if it doesn't make any sense. But what they fail to realize is that there is a certain kind of satisfaction when an audience gets something right and guesses the correct answer. They're like, yes, I was smart enough to guess this answer. And as opposed, they just try to make everyone feel surprised, aka stupid, by making a twist that doesn't make any sense. And this just goes back to the lack of maturity in the storytelling of a lot of these Hollywood writers, in the sense that they think that they have to surprise an audience, because Game of Thrones, like the Red Wedding and Ned Stark dying and stuff like that, was all such a shock to the people who didn't read the books. But all those twists, oddly enough, came from the original writer George R.R. Martin in his novels, and he's a guy who understands storytelling. He's a master novelist and
very
writer for a long time as well. So he understood how to pull off those twists. Whereas Benioff and Weiss, when left to their own devices, they would be like, "Oh, we're not going to have Jon Snow kill the Night King. We're going to have Arya do it, and everyone's going to be amazed." And everyone was just pissed off because it was like, Jon Snow should have been the one to fight the Night King.
I was so aggravated by that. And I hadn't even read George R.R. Martin's first book. When I saw that, I'm like, something's not right about this at all. It should have been Jon Snow. That's when I went back and started reading the first Game of Thrones book and just getting wrapped up in all of his storytelling. But because I'd like to guess stuff all the time when I'm watching movies too. It's like, if you can fool me, that's great. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to figure it out, but I figure it out. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was right. Like the movie The Sixth Sense, that one kept me guessing so much. And I'm just like, you mean to tell me it was in plain sight the whole time during the movie?
You want to hear a funny story about The Sixth Sense?
Oh, sure. Tell me.
So when it was coming out, I was in film school, and I was at home visiting my family for the summer, I believe. And me and my youngest brother, Brian, were having breakfast at the breakfast table. And we had specifically been avoiding everything we could about The Sixth Sense, because we heard there was a big twist ending. We didn't want to spoil it. And so my mom, who growing up, she would love to watch murder mystery shows because she loved like the puzzle, and she'd always try to figure out the mystery. And we're sitting there, we're watching one of the morning show hosts review The Sixth Sense, and he gets to the point, I think it was Leonard Maltin. He's like, and there's a twist ending that no one will ever see coming. And we're sitting there eating our cereal. My mom's just like, you know what? I bet Bruce Willis is a ghost. And me and my brother just kind of stopped. We're just like, Mom, no, Mom. And she's like, what? I could be wrong. I'm like, you're not wrong. That's the twist. And so like when we went to see the movie, the entire movie, we're sitting there, we're like, oh God, Mom was right. Mom was right. And by the time we get to the big twist, we're like, God damn it. And everyone else is like, oh my God, that's the greatest twist ever. And we're just sitting there like, oh, that's so stupid. Oh my
mom
God.
figured it out.
Yeah. My mom ruined The Sixth Sense for me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. But that just proves just how much attention your mom paid to like a lot of
My
that.
mom's a very smart woman. She edits all my books for me. So
Oh.
former English teacher.
Well, that explains it. That explains it. Oh my gosh. So the last thing that I'm going to get into, which is actually really, really funny, because we're going to talk about guilty pleasures. This was one of my guilty pleasures, mostly because part of it had to do because the chick was from Florida. Netflix is doing a season 2 of The Tiger King.
Well, they did a season 2 of Making a Murderer. So.
Really?
Oh yeah, you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't.
It's even better than the first season.
I haven't been over to Netflix in a long time because I got Discovery Plus, which is like the best value. I've been in the true crime section for.
Oh, it's great, isn't it?
Man, I don't know when I'm ever going to get out.
Homicide Hunter, the first 48.
That one I'm in. Let's see, watching Betrayed. As I was watching Deadly Women, so now I'm watching Betrayed. Deadly Women I love because of the FBI profiler who's in it. She's like amazing. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get out of that true crime.
Well, Netflix has a lot of good true crime documentaries. Like there was just this one about the El Cortez Hotel, I think, in Los Angeles, where a girl disappeared and was later found murdered, and it's fascinating. I love it. And they just did one on the Night Stalker. There's a lot of good true crime stuff over on Netflix.
Wow.
Yeah, and not the least of which is the original Tiger King. I love that show.
That show, it was. I was like, why are people talking about about this show? What's so great about it? And I
so
watched the first.
crazy it is.
That's exactly it. I watched the first episode, and I'm just like, this is nuts.
Yeah, it's not just about like the crimes that were committed. It was just a look inside this weird subculture of people who raised and sold exotic cats, and it's just so fascinating to see like all these different types of people who like you got the guy who they based Tony Montana on, and you got this like this guru who keeps like a harem of women around, and it's just like, oh my god, this is fascinating. And of course, then you got like Joe Exotic, who, brainwashes young men into becoming gay and all this like weird, bizarre stuff. Has a feud with Carol Baskins. I'm surprised that she came back for the sequel to this because she did not come off very well in the original.
No. And it's like the same things that she seemed to be accusing Joe Exotic of. Hers was doing the same thing. She didn't even know the names of her volunteers. She had them wearing like different color shirts after they'd been there, and
basically running a multi-level marketing scheme.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a fascinating show. In fact, we even watched all the follow-up stuff that Joe McHale did during quarantine.
I watched that too.
And the David Spade interviews with the different people from the show. All of it, I couldn't get enough. I loved it.
It was just so crazy. Like the biggest reality show train wreck with finding out, what's going on with all of these people. And Carol Baskin, what is it that Joe got attacked by one of his was her husband who got attacked by one of the tigers, and she was like, yeah, maybe it was some sardine oil on his foot. they like sardine oil.
A lot of conspiracy theories. I think the craziest thing was that when the show became a hit, they were going to do a scripted series starring Nicolas Cage as Joe Exotic, and I was so excited for that show, and then it got canceled. I think
they pulled the plug. I was so disappointed.
Dude, Nick Cage,
he would have been.
How could you go wrong with that? I know, right? Talk about a perfect casting for Joe Exotic. Oh my god!
I wanted to see him with his campaign when he was running for president, just to see Nicolas Cage do that.
Yeah, he lives out here in Vegas, and me and Alex and Vader keep threatening to try to track him down and get him to do the podcast with us. But we love Nicolas Cage on the podcast. He's fantastic.
I freaking love Nicolas Cage.
Who doesn't?
I do. Con Air is always going to be between Con Air and National Treasure.
Me and Jude just watched Pig the other night. And
I heard that was really good.
It's very different from his other stuff. I think the best movie I've seen him in recently was Willy's Wonderland, where he played the janitor at a kids theme park that's haunted.
Yes, loved it. It was literally like Five Nights at Freddy's, but with a baseball bat and no F's to give.
Yeah, we did a review of it on our channel. So if you go to saltinerdvideo.com, that'll take you to our channel. You can do a Willy's Wonderland search. We reviewed it along with Psycho Goreman. But what was fascinating about Willy's Wonderland is Nicolas Cage. He doesn't say a word the entire movie. Everything's done through facial expressions,
right?
And it works. It works so well. Like he just doesn't say a single thing, and you're just like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh man, I'm gonna definitely check that out. But Gary Thomas, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I so do appreciate it. Lorena, me and you were on the same page when it comes to Discovery Plus, especially Deadly Women. And Candice DeLong is who you're thinking of. Yes, Candice DeLong. I swear, the shorter her hair got, the more gorgeous she looked, and just her brain when it works. I almost wish that I would have had her job to be an FBI profiler. I didn't even know that existed. Actually, when I was a kid, I wanted to actually be a homicide detective, but
me too.
My mom was freaked out. You're gonna get shot. I'm like, but you get to help people and you get to solve, because I loved solving, mysteries and murders are some of the most interesting mysteries to go and solve. So. Wow, but yeah, Discovery Plus. I initially got it for a 90-day fiance. I'm gonna
Lorena, I'm gonna have to send this to you. This is my Las Vegas mystery series that I've written under the pen name Maxwell Cambridge. It's about a concierge detective here in Vegas who's basically a private investigator that the casinos lend out to their high roller clients whenever they get into trouble.
Mhm.
And it's the first in a series that I'm writing, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback on it. Again, I'll show you the cover here.
Oh, hold on. Let me blow you up so I can see that proper.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's basically my own little take on the Las Vegas mystery, and I'd be happy to send you a copy.
Oh, thank you. I would love to have that.
It's also on audio, so if you prefer listening to audiobooks instead, I can hook you up with that as well.
Oh, thank you. That's actually probably going to be better. I listen to audiobooks so much more than I do sit down because I just don't have the time. So when I'm cleaning and stuff like that, I'll have something on and it's just perfect. But oh my gosh, that sounds so interesting. Thank you. I would love to have that. Oh man, Ram Bam 3000, Lorena Creole, Matt, how do you brainwash someone into becoming gay?
Watch Tiger King and you'll see.
Watch.
You get them hopped up on crystal meth, and then you cut them off from their family and you take away all their money. And you control their life, and you say, "Hey, if you want this, you got to be gay." So that's how you do it.
Gotta check.
Not that I'm an expert.
No, but that's you have to watch. You have to watch the series and check that out. Well, folks, as usual, time goes so fast on the show, and I'm so honored that Matt could join us. But folks, please do subscribe to the Salty Nerd podcast over there on YouTube, and of course, you can follow Matt on Twitter, and I have the social media links in the description box. So I know you said so a little bit earlier, but what do you guys have coming up that you would like the folks to be aware of here?
Well, so the big thing is in our members area at saltynerdclub.com, we're going to be doing a review recap of the Apple TV show Foundation, which is the adaptation of the Isaac Asimov book by David Goyer, and we're going to be doing that for members only. So that's going to be in our members only thing. And basically, we've got a new episode coming out this Friday, which is going to be about Bruce Campbell. That's the theme. So we review 3 non-Evil Dead Bruce Campbell movies. And
I love how you put that.
Bubba Hotep.
Bubba Hotep was one of them. Assault on Dome 4 and Sundown, Vampire in Retreat, something like that. So that's getting released on Friday. And then on Monday, we're doing our review of Kate, which we do a non-spoiler review for the channel, and then the full hour-long spoiler review is for our members only. And we're just having a lot of fun. We're doing a episode-by-episode recap of C week to week, the Apple TV show starring Jason Momoa. And we're having so much fun doing that because the actual cast and crew of the show is actually watching and listening to our episodes, and they're
nice.
They've reached out to us on social media and they told us how much they like the show. And we're trying to set up some interviews with some people from the show. So we're having a lot of fun over there. If you guys like to listen as opposed to watch on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere, pretty much anywhere that has podcasts, even Amazon. So you can listen to our episodes as well as watch them on YouTube. The YouTube stuff is a little bit more fun because you get the visual references and we do some fun stuff on there. But also for the members, we've got our outtake videos and we do goofy stuff like Dad Joke Chicken, which is going to be coming out soon and stuff like that. So we're just kind of come up with fun, goofy stuff. And, if you guys would like to become a member, we'd really appreciate it because our goal right now is to get enough Patreon money, members only money, that Alex and Vader can quit their day jobs and just do the podcast full time. And so that's our goal, is to try to get Vader and Alex to retire from their day jobs. So if you guys want to help with that, be very appreciative.
Awesome. Well, folks, you heard the man, so please do support the Salty Nerd podcast.
And if not, just continue watching the stuff that we put out and enjoying it and commenting on our videos. We love to see what people think about what we're doing because we have a lot of fun doing it.
Well, you guys sure do seem like you do, between stories that, Jude has told me and, you're telling me, and I just hear nothing but good things about you guys over there. So Thank you so much for being on. I so appreciate that. This has absolutely been a blast. I can't wait to be able to listen to that book.
One more thing. For those of you who are on Twitter, we actually live stream to a Twitter Spaces every Tuesday when we're recording our shows. So you can actually listen to us record our shows live, and we take pauses to bring people from the Spaces on to ask questions and talk with us and stuff like that. So feel free to follow me or at salty_nerd or at MattVader74, and you'll be able to be notified when we do those live spaces every Tuesday.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. Reina, thanks so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, you were out. You were welcome. Thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute blast. And hopefully sometime in the future, I can get all of you guys from the Salty Nerd podcast on.
Vader and Alex are hard to pin down because they have such strange working schedules. So
I hear you. I hear you. Well, folks, thank you so much for watching. Please do hit that like button and share this video out. And if you're watching on the replay, thank you so much for watching and hit that like button too. So thanks again, Matt, for joining us. Thank you again, Fat Stephen, for co-hosting with me.
Thank you, Matt.
We'll see you all later.
Watch Manifest.
Bye.
bye.
Remember, Salty Nerd Podcast, Patreon. Let's get those people working at a better place where they're happy. I need a cupcake.
Just don't take my cupcakes.